All right, before we proceed with roll call, I would like to welcome our new commissioner. Please welcome Rick Mason, who was appointed to the Plan Commission by Council President Greg Waters in November. So you can see we have not met for a while, but we are happy to see you. And Dr. Mason is a native of Lake Mills, whom you may recall from his service on the Lake Mills School Board for 12 years, 10 of them as president. Rick has been involved in public education for more than 40 years as a teacher, reading specialist, principal, and associate professor at UW-Whitewater, where he created the Higher Educational Leadership Program. Dr. Mason teaches supervision of instruction, the principalship, and more. Rick is a past member of the city's Police and Fire Commission. So welcome to Rick Mason.
Thank you.
And we also would like to thank Josh Schumacher, who did serve on the Plan Commission for 4.5 years. And with that, then we can proceed with roll call.
Ms. Lazaris,
Here.
Mr. Grady,
Here.
Mrs. Bishop,
Here.
Mr. Foster,
I'm here, but I can't get into the video meeting.
okay, Dr. Mason,
Here.
and Mr. Holman and Mr. Coots both informed staff that they'd be unavailable for this evening's meeting.
Right, right. All right, very well. Item number 3, correction and/or approval of the meeting minutes of October 26, 2021.
Motion to move.
Is there-
Second.
All right, Mr. Grady moved and Mrs. Bishop seconded to approve the minutes. Further discussion? In that case, we'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Mr. Grady,
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Dr. Mason,
I'll abstain.
Ms. Lazaris,
Aye.
motion passed 4-0.
Item number 4, questions and public comment. The public may address the commission at this time regarding items on the agenda unless the item is the subject of a public hearing. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, please hold your comments until the hearing. We do have one public hearing this evening. Item number 5, Conditional Use Request by David Grant for grading and excavation within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark at 513 West Lake Park Place, parcel 246-0713-1441-070. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the commission on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep comments limited to 3 minutes. State your name and address when starting comments. Also fill out the sign-in sheet at the podium. For people online, please follow the Zoom link or the phone number listed on the Plan Commission agenda. Are there any public comments at this time?
Yes,
Mr. Temperley?
I'm Todd Templey. I'm speaking as the official president of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I request that the Planning Commission schedule a special discussion on what happens when you create ordinances based on the perfect condition where you're building from scratch and the impact of those ordinances on 100-plus-year-old neighborhoods, resulting in contentious ZBA meetings. And Greg was here. Was it contentious? Yes. And there's rumors that one of the members was discussing like special neighborhood zoning as to alleviate the issue. But do any of the Planning Commission members know what the ZBA is for? Yes, no?
You said what, the DBA?
ZBA.
Oh, ZBA. I'm not sure what that stands for. Could you?
Board
I
of
guess you
Zoning
answered my
Appeals.
question then. So,
He was asking, do we know what the Board of Zoning Appeals is for? Is to
Got
hear
it.
requests for variances from the code.
is that yes or
And,
no?
Yes,
and
we know what
it's
we know what it's
understood,
for.
yeah. And if you ask for variance, you're to show that you have hardship.
It's really difficult in the older neighborhoods that have been built over 100 years ago, and if they're facing extreme measures like completely tearing down the house and rebuilding or paying for electric poles to be moved. So all I'm asking is just state what goes on at these meetings so you have an idea what happens when you pass these ordinances. So.
But then again, that's exactly why the Zoning Board of Appeals is there. So thank you very much for doing that job, Todd.
Right. So it's up to you. Each planning commission member can schedule a meeting, an agenda item if you want. So it's up to you.
Well,
All right.
these comments are new to the Plan Commission, so it's something that we can consider in the future. And maybe, as I understand it, there was no outcome to the case that was before
Well,
the
it's
Board
not
of
just
Zoning
this
Appeals.
case. It's been others as well in the past.
Right.
And
Well-
other things other than this I've noted too seem odd to me.
I think we would have a greater interest if there was a report that anyone would care to provide that showed the location of the difficulty in meeting code and what the situation was. Otherwise, it's going to be we don't
I'll send you a
know
memo.
what we're
You're asking
going
for a memo,
towards.
correct?
Sorry.
Yes.
Yes. All right. I can do that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Aye. Is there any other further comment under item 4 for general comment? All right. In that case, we'll proceed with item number 5, public hearing. Conditional use request from David Grant for grading and excavation within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark at 513 Westlake Park Place. Parcel 2460713. 1441070. And before we ask for public comment, I would like to have Mr. Wolf, our consulting planner, present the case.
Thank you, Ms. Lazaris. As you're aware, anybody who lives on the lake and is looking to do a certain amount of work on the lake shore within a certain distance of the water's edge needs to come to this body to receive a review and approval of those plans, technically prior to work occurring. As we've seen over the last kind of 24 to 30 months, we've seen a lot of people who have undertaken work along the water's edge and have been doing so kind of at their leisure without coming to this board, and they have been, I'll say, found out as a part of the process. Sometimes there is just the unfortunate didn't understand the codes and requirements that are expected of them as property owners for being riparian owners, and sometimes there are some willful ignorance of coming through a process. The property in question is one that has a pretty lengthy history as it relates to work occurring on the property and especially in the lakeshore without previous approvals or permits. So this is an issue where we are trying to, and we have seen this on other properties, trying to get the requisite submittal or plan set to undertake improvements on the lake, around the lakeshore. That is disturbing of earth, potentially changing of grades, installing improvements. Everything could be from walkways to patios to structures to retaining walls, landscaping, et cetera, to ensure shore cover and the like. There is a very lengthy component to the memo that has been provided to you and was made available online for the public to see. that kind of highlights some of the issues that have happened on the property in the past, and the community, meaning the city specifically, attempts to get compliance. There was structural work, and then of course a lot of disturbance in the shoreline area. So at this juncture, we are trying to get the property owner to provide requisite plans. I know that there's a lot of public to provide comment, and I'm just trying to introduce this. I don't want to get into too many of the details, but until you've heard from the public, but we certainly have a lot that we'd like to provide related to the plans. The code does spell out what needs to be provided to us. We have sort of a sketch that's been provided about some of the work that has occurred there. I think after you've heard from the public, about some of the concerns that we have also raised in the memo, which is work occurring prior to review and approval by the city, work occurring without a plan set to be reviewed by the city. The work that has occurred out there has been resulting in negative impacts to surrounding properties, especially when it comes to drainage. And there's been work that's been occurring that has been detrimental to the shoreline and the lake itself. So those are hurdles that we need to have addressed here. We have members of the city staff, the Assistant Director of Public Works, to talk about any of the erosion and drainage issues on neighboring properties. We have the zoning administrator, landscape architect, who can talk about some of the things that we're trying to achieve from the site restoration out there. And then the neighborhood services officer is here, who could, if you have questions about the work that has occurred on site and some of the permitting issues that have occurred. I don't know if the petitioner is here, the property owner is here, or a representative of the property owner. In case you have questions of them, I haven't seen them. But we can certainly provide more detail if you had a chance to hear from the public. But in a nutshell, we are to get a set of plans that outlines existing conditions, proposed improvements. They are evaluated by the various city entities to ensure compliance with codes, ordinances, engineering practices. The level of disturbance, et cetera, has to be reviewed by this body and recommended to the council. In a nutshell, I will say we don't have all the materials that we need to provide that review, but there are a number of detrimental issues that are happening out on the site that we need to get rectified.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Wolf. To the members of the public hearing is open on this matter. Does anyone wish to address the proposed conditional use? And if so, then please approach the podium, write down your name and address, and also state your name and address for the clerk. Are there any
Ms.
public
Lazaris?
comments at this time?
Ms. Lazaris?
Yeah.
This is Misty. I just want to let you know there is somebody online that would like to speak during the public hearing, and that is Ms. Brandy Duro.
Right. Yeah, further, if there's anyone online, is there anyone online who wishes to comment?
Yes, if it's open for comments now, I can go first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My comment is, if this work that's already been completed is what is in question here for the conditional use permits, we're back into the category of post-conditional use permitting, again, by the city of Lake Mills, and the slippery slope that we keep going down in terms of protecting the lake with the ordinances that are in place. If this continues in such a fashion, it's becoming well known for people who own property around the lake now that this is the way to go about it, that you go ahead and do work and then later come and claim you don't know the ordinances, you're sorry, or it wasn't clear to you that you did it, somebody told you it was okay, and then that's a really bad precedent to be setting for protecting our lake and for future generations who depend upon us to keep the lake quality in a really good way. Rock Lake is a good lake. We don't want to continue to see this kind of procedure being done where work's done, damage is done, and then, oh, well, just try to remedy it this way and we'll give you a post-conditional use permit. So it's a really upsetting concern about this issue again. And then on a more personal level, having the property adjoin the Cedars where I'm part of the Cedars, something that bothers me is that some of this work overlaps onto Cedars property, and I don't know how the city planning commission or the city council would be able to approve work that includes another property owner, that this is not is solely David Grant's property that this work that has been done is pertaining to. Along with this, the riparian rights that are dictated by the DNR, it seems that yes, the city can give some conditional use permits on things, but then how can the city be allowed to give shoreline or water access rights or easements for something that's outside of the owner's riparian zone, which in this case, that's a question that needs to really be further looked into. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Darrow, can I get your address, please, for the minutes?
Yes, 204 West Lake Park Place, Lake Mills, Wisconsin, 53551. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who is present here in the chambers or online who wishes to speak?
As I write my name down, I'm Eric Body. I am also a resident of Lake Park Place. Let me get my address down here real quick. All right. I've looked through the plan or what the recommendations are that the city staff and their advisors have put together. It's pretty darn good and it's pretty darn conclusive as to what needs to be done. It's addressing many of the issues that would have to be taken care of to make this property back to what it was. Let me put it this way. I've been involved in construction for 40 years now. And if you were going to put up a pack of bad violations and red tags, as we call them, I don't think I've ever seen so many red tags in one property in my life. It's that bad. But the problem that I have with this, and not necessarily with you guys or what's done, is many years ago, we were told the property line is in said place, and maybe Dave Grant believed it was in that place too. So much of the work that he has done has infringed upon the property of Cedars. Whether that be intentional or not, it's not for me to say, but there was a false property mark. And through the Cedars in the last couple of years, we've had it resurveyed 2 different times. So we know the property line from the back northwest side of his house is about 6 foot away from the edge of his house. And he has done much of the work on our property. And one of the remediation things in here that's required, which I think is really important, where you say the site survey, the property including property boundaries, easements, setback structures, ordinary high water mark, notable features, vegetation, etc. You need a gosh darn survey on that property with which we can compare it to what we have done as Cedars, and I know it's going to come out right where we think it is. So not only has he damaged his property, he's also damaged our property. But what I am concerned about is as remediation occurs, I do not necessarily know if the Cedars wants him to even set foot on our property. Now, that's a decision that we have to deal with here as Cedars, but much of the damages he's done is on our property. He claims the trees he's cut down were his. One of them was on the property line. Probably most of that tree was on his property, no doubt about it, but part of it was ours. And that maintained a lot of the vegetation. Some of the trees he cut down that were allegedly diseased, probably not. Not for me to say anymore. They weren't our trees, but they definitely caused the erosion to increase. I've been dealing with the Cedars, or pardon me, with the city for, oh boy, pushing 30 years to help with the kettle drainage. And this last time around, the city did a really nice job of maintaining and getting that kettle in order again, all for nothing if this isn't taken care of in a timely fashion. Because there's a lot of sediment from what Dave Grant has done. oozing right on down the bank into that very expensive kettle that the city put up. I don't know how that's going to be handled. So my thing of it is it's been a couple years since this has started. I believe the action has been too slow against Mr. Grant to be able to remedy this, but I do not want to see this drag on forever when there's damage being done. Because you got to remember, the kettle down there that's handling the drainage from down the street is not just handling that little bit of drainage from Lake Park Place. It's handling a fair amount of drainage from Ferry Drive and Main Street. It's handling a lot of drainage that's going down through our property as an agreement with the city to get that water to the lake. So our property is being damaged pretty heavily by what's happening. And what we've worked for many years to get it, we're that close to having that property under control and in good shape, and then this happens. So as you look at this, I hope that you can take action in a quicker fashion then, because I certainly don't want to come back here in 2 years and go, what's happening? I hope you can get it settled and fixed sooner than that, because there's not only the violations that are obvious and the ones that are listed in the letters that were in the packet for the city for you guys to read. Those are only some of the violations. I guarantee you the first person that sets foot into that house, if they ever get into that house, are on the backyard, and all the violations and all the work that's occurred without permits are just about going to die. I mean, I don't mean literally somebody's going to die, but they're just going to go like, whoa, how did all this happen? Why did this happen? From what I remember and from what I've been told over the years, there's two things that the statute of limitation doesn't run out on: code violations and murder. So take that to the bank when you're looking at this, and let's see if we can get something done to get this property back the way it was 5 years ago. It was in pretty good shape 5 years ago. And now you take a look over there, you're going to see bobcats, you're going to see dump trucks, you're going to see all sorts of things that are parked there forever that shouldn't be parked on that property for work that's not getting done. Now, I'm aware that as a homeowner, you're allowed to do a certain amount of things on your own home if it's owner-occupied. From what I understand, he probably doesn't even live there because they can't get a letter delivered to him at that address. So is it owner-occupied? I ask you that as you issue a permit. It is not owner-occupied. Should he be able to do his own work? That's up to you guys. But yeah, I sound a little bit passionate about this. But me and many other members of Cedars have been staring at this for a long time, trying to maintain our property line and trying to maintain the niceness of what we're working on. Yeah, we're not perfect. We made mistakes that we didn't know about, but we're remedying those. And all we're asking is this gets remedied in the same effort, in the same fashion that we put in to remedy those for our property. So I'm about done going on here, but I want you to consider that there's a lot of damage that's been done. It's only going to get worse. It's impacting the city with the extra cost it's going to cost the city to maintain what they've already taken care of. And that's going to cost all you taxpayers. So hopefully you can get this settled in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boddy. The public hearing is still open. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment on this proposed conditional use, either at present or online? There are some people online as well.
Hi, my name is Dave Lindloff. I live at 520 West Lake Park Place, which is actually directly across the street from Mr. Grant's property. I won't echo the comments of Mr. Boddy, but I do appreciate them and I do agree with them. The only thing that I would like to state is that I have looked at the memorandum. I agree with the memorandum. There's a couple things that I just want to bring up. There are still several trees in the area that are going to need to come down because of his landscaping techniques, where there's no crown left to the trees. Also, we had a walking path that was started through there, which now doesn't exist anymore. And I don't want any plan that we do to infringe upon that. I still want to be able to have a path through there on our property. It's really bad. There used to be a ton of screening cover in there, so you really couldn't see across the property line. Now there's nothing. It just doesn't exist. And it's all because of his excavation and his use of herbicides. And use of herbicides that in that vicinity, that close to the lake, I don't know. I don't know if there's any kind of ordinance against that, but that's why most of that underbrush is dead and gone. But the grade that he's got in there now, I know you can't see it because of the snow, but it just doesn't work. Other than that, that's all I have to say.
All right. I
Thank
thank
you.
you, sir. The public hearing is still open. Would anyone else like to comment on this request?
Good evening. My name is Matthew Michaud. I live at 205 West Lake Park Place. I'm just coming up to say that I do support what I've seen on the memorandum by the city, and to just say that I'd like to see remediation of the site from the lake all the way to the street. Putting bushes back up, putting some of that covering that was just talked about previously. And then I'd also like to see that if the city could get the plans that the individual would like to use to for the work that they'd like to have done on their property. So that's all I have to say. All right,
All right.
thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Michelle. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this request?
Good evening. My name is Peter Kirschhofer. I live at 523 South Main Street. I am a participant in the Cedars organization, so that's how my involvement is with this property and so on. Again, I want to also add my support to the memorandum, well laid out, and it's a good plan. Again, just to kind of echo what we've already heard so far, is this remediation that needs to occur to help. It needs to get put back the way it was, so that we don't have the erosion problems into the kettles, and just making the place nice again, as it should be. So again, it's just a support of this memorandum. So thank you for your consideration. Okay.
All right.
What? Oh.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kirschhofer.
I'm Todd Larson. I live in 519 West Lake Park Place. I have the lot to the south of the property here, the Grants property. And I've read the memorandum to you from the staff. I think it's very well thought out, and I just support it 100%. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Larson. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter? Would anyone else like to comment on this proposed conditional use? Are there any other comments in person or online concerning this proposal? In that case, the public hearing is closed. We go on to item number 6, discussion recommendation on conditional use request from David Grant for grading and excavation within 300 feet of the ordinary high water mark at 513 West Lake Park Street, West Lake Park Place, parcel number 2460713144170. Mr. Wolf.
Okay, thank you. Again, as has been kind of reiterated, the memo did make a recommendation from the staff to enable the property owner. We were requesting the Plan Commission because this is the process for correction and enabling the possibility of doing work in the shoreline. The recommendation we made there was, I guess, a good faith effort by the city staff to the property owner to say, we're asking the Plan Commission to give him a hard deadline to get his plans in order. I guess I would say that the fact that the petitioner or the property owner is not here, or representative is not here, and I'm sure the neighborhood services officer or the zoning administrator can certainly go at length about, I'll say, the willful disregard for either communication with the city or compliance with stop work orders that have been issued. And the fact that there are a number of significant violations that have immediate impacts on neighboring properties and things that the city has interest in related to drainage, which is why Dwayne Vandermoos is here if there were questions about those issues. I would request that the Plan Commission deny the conditional use. We do not have the requisite material to review, to establish the existing condition, to understand the work that's been going on out there. And from a staffing perspective, this needs to elevate to a higher enforcement action by the city. I look at the city attorney on this as to what the next steps would likely be, but we would recommend that the Plan Commission deny the conditional use or make that recommendation to the council. Hopefully the council will do the same so the city can go in and whatever the remedies are to stop the immediate problems that are happening out there with site impacts, excavation work, much less some of the improvements that have been made, some of the ground cover or trees that have been removed. I would like to comment, we don't have requirements for landscaping in front yards, et cetera, on single-family properties, so we're a bit limited in what we can do there, though I do respect the concerns that neighbors have about things that have been removed. We, as a city, don't get involved in those. And the conditional use process, and again, I look at the city attorney on this, really is for shoreline-related issues or work within a certain distance of the shore. But again, based on the fact that we have had very problematic communications or true refusal to comply with the codes and ordinances, and from the city's perspective, that we recommend denial outright. Mm-hmm. If there are specific questions, if you need context, obviously the staff is here. They can provide much more direction as to what they've been experiencing out there. But I think it needs to elevate to the point where immediate corrections can occur, some level of restoration, and again, I think that's going to be a litigated matter. But I'm looking at the city attorney on that.
City staff has been following Mr. Grant around for about 2 years now. I would say that most of the people who have done shoreland or other types of work that we brought in they've been compliant with the requirements that were brought up, and they were looking more at a historical perspective in that the city hadn't historically enforced those types of issues, and now has taken a much more aggressive stance that this individual has totally ignored us on multiple occasions for all the work that he's done. So we have actually started a process where we inspect on his property regularly to see what his compliance is, send him notice and fine him. So that gets attached to his tax bill. I don't know that we'll get to the point where he really notices. And that's why I think, while we've been trying to avoid it, I don't think we're going to be able to avoid legal action. And I imagine we'll be in court for a while and he'll continue to do what he wants to do. Because really compliance is that people say, yeah, I'm willing to comply, or that I want to be part of it. Once you've decided not to comply, then it's just a downright fight, and it's hard to get compliance.
Well, Plan Commissioners, I have to say that I agree with Mr. Wolf's recommendation. The application is not complete whatsoever. There really isn't. There's a sketch, but there truly is not a site plan compliant with the code requirements for a site plan. And when one examines what has occurred with flagrant disregard for the code, I am inclined to agree with Mr. Wolf's assessment and recommendation. Plan Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions of staff?
Yeah, I have a question, Dan. What are the fines attached to this code?
That would probably be a better question for the neighborhood service officer. I don't know. I know there's a range. I don't know what the typical fine in this circumstance is. So any sense there? They range depending on the violation.
Say that
From
again.
like $100 to $500
A day?
per inspection.
Per inspection?
Is there any kind of, I'm curious to know, you talked about the sediment running off into the kettle and all that. Is there any plan or any form that you can take to be reimbursed for what it takes to clean it out?
I don't know. I haven't really looked at that. The one question I would ask that Dan and I should be looking at is destruction of a public property, because that kettle is basically a designed public facility, and so we may be able to prosecute him on another level.
Okay.
But I suppose we could do special charges and attach it to his taxes in order to be able to remove the rock and then clean out the kettle and then reestablish the rock, which will take a while. But yeah, we probably could get that money back. I'm thinking that we might raise the bar a little bit more and see what destruction of public property is.
Hey, Steve, this is Mike.
Go ahead, Mr. Foster.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I was just kind of curious, does any of this, I guess, could it morph into anything that the DNR could actually be brought in to help us with enforcement?
The DNR doesn't like to get involved in local issues. They might at some point. They're going to prefer that we take all our action. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious, since it could be putting sediment into the lake and stuff like that, and I know how they are about their navigable waterways.
The way this kettle works, it pretty much cleans all that out of the water running down to the lake. The problem is that it clogs all the systems that we use to clean the water before it gets to the lake. And it also reduces the capacity, so it pushes it over the top faster. So that's the question we have to resolve.
Has it done any damage to the cedars itself?
I believe that there are several issues involved in damage to the cedars, erosion being the worst. Some of the issues like trees, I don't know, and the property line and some other issues that they brought up, it's probably more civil than municipal. Our conditional use permit is for the impacts to the lake from grading or construction, those types of things. So the debate on the trees and the herbicides, we don't have any codes on any one of those. So if he's taking down trees on his property, he can do that. If he's taking down trees on his neighbor's property, that's their obligation to enforce through civil action.
Mr. Wolf, can you tell us more about the path? Mr. Lenloff mentioned who has rights to it, how the CUP would mitigate any of what's happened to the path. This is really the first that I've been aware of that.
Actually, yeah, Steve's going to probably best answer this.
The path theoretically is on the Cedars property. The thing that we would probably have done here that would mitigate it the most is making sure that there's a CSM completed, or at least, that verifies what the property lines are. Because to a certain extent, from what I understand tonight, there's some debate on where the property line was. And if that gets cleared up, then it helps reestablish certain items. But again, I don't know that we have any enforcement obligation on the path. That would be something between the two property owners. But yes, I'm sure that finding those property pins is going to make a lot of difference in who's going to be doing what.
The city does not get into property line disputes. Those are obviously civil matters, and they need to hire the registered land surveyors to go out there and certify where property pins are. Then, of course, when there's a disagreement, obviously that elevates to something at the circuit level. We as the city would take the certified information that we have, but you're talking about one property owner having harmed another property owner. Aside from the drainage issue in the kettle where it's public infrastructure, right, the city doesn't really have any ownership or public ability to use that path. So we're a little removed in that regard.
In some ways, it seems like the Planning Commission here is between a rock and a hard place with Mr. Rowe's comments that conditional use permits, it seems like frequently are issued after the fact to remedy something. And so let's say the Planning Commission were to just, saying what if we were to deny the application today, at least based on the fact that it's not complete. And later down the road, the petitioner comes into compliance or is willing to submit a completed application. Are we still in that rock and hard place where we're granting something after the fact? Is there any way to remedy that tonight? Or
so there's a couple things associated with that. One, the city, when it comes to codes and ordinances, has always been striving for compliance with the codes and ordinances at the end of the day. It's not that we want to take things to forfeiture or elevate it up to some other legal action. It's really the only hammers or sticks that the city has. With the issues that are happening on the shoreline, it's typically there's been someone who's been trying to make improvements or betterment to the shoreline for obviously their use aesthetically and not resulting in, say, this kind of catastrophic detriment to the shoreline, right? The hardline stance is city sees it and then it forces through codes and ordinances and other actions to have them put it back to what it was and then come in and then follow the process, right? Many of these cases, we either don't know what's happening until after it's done, and then it's trying to retroactively ensure a certain level of compliance with what the intent of the code and the ordinance is. Perfect world, someone comes in, gets a permit, you review it, it gets approved, and they build what they say they're going to build, right? But in these situations where people go and do work, I guess the question is, how hard a line would the council want, and turning to the city manager, the city to seek out violations and then enforce violations, right? That can be done. It's a lot of manpower. It takes a lot of resources, and things rise to a political level, right? I am being persecuted by the city for decisions I make. So again, you try to balance property owners trying to improve their property if they aren't aware that certain permits are necessary, it's helping them through the process to get the requisite permits, to ensure things are built properly, according to codes, ordinances, building codes, and that they aren't resulting in a detriment to neighboring properties, right? That's the issue behind the codes and ordinances. And I would say the shoreline issues are just a little more heightened because of there aren't that many of them. The level of work seems to be pretty high that's going on there, the level of investment. I mean, that people who live on the lake or using the lake notice when significant change occurs, aside from change occurring and it resulting in problems to neighboring properties, right? When someone is taking down scrub trees, which we allow, right, that's fine, but you need to have a planting plan in place, and that's what we've reviewed in the past, to make sure that the the integrity of the shoreline is maintained, right? And the aesthetic component of the shoreline is maintained, and that you aren't clear-cutting your shoreline, right? So at the end of the day, it's how hard does the council want the city to enforce? This is an egregious one, but in other situations, to like dictate compliance, right? And then is it great, put it back to exactly what it was, and then come in and see us? They may be making improvements that truly are for the betterment of the shoreline and neighboring properties. So it's why I think the city has had I don't say a soft stance, but has had an accommodating stance when it comes to the retroactivity of going through this process, right?
I'm not even going to say we have a soft stance. We used to have a no stance.
Okay.
And I've had this conversation with the council, and I know other people. People are getting zoning sick because we now are actually following up on them. So people who 5 years ago would have changed the shoreline and never seen a person from the city and never had to worry about it are now seeing people from the city. And, if you make other types of changes in the city, you're not happy about it, or you don't like the conditional use permits you get required with and you don't comply with them, and the city shows up and makes you comply with them. But it's still a situation of we do not have enough people to drive up and down every street every day and make sure that every code is being complied with. I can drive down my street and pick out 100 zoning violations.
So some of the people who spoke at the public portion of the hearing support the plan by city staff. And if we were to not approve the motion today for the conditional use permit, then that plan, in the event the petitioner ever wanted to abide by it, wouldn't go into effect.
Well, we don't really have a plan here. The sketch that was provided to us doesn't meet our minimum requirements for reviewing it to ensure that all of the issues that have been documented and raised anecdotally are being addressed. Attempts to try to get plans that we need and meet the minimum requirements have been very unsuccessful. So from our perspective, we're at the point where this needs to elevate, but the process is apply for a conditional use. If you get the conditional use, then build the conditional use. It's assuming you've provided the requisite materials, it's been reviewed, changes are made, and ultimately we have a plan that the city supports in complying with the code requirements, right? We don't have that, and we have no plan, but some sort of enforcement action is necessary to rectify these significant problems that are harming neighboring properties, right?
So are you saying that if we deny it, it makes it easier for us to take them to court?
Yes.
Is there anything else the Plan Commission would need to do tonight, or that we could do tonight, to move that forward if we don't approve the CUP?
I defer to the city attorney if there's any wording that needs to be specific as to why it's being denied, to make it clear that it's not just that you haven't provided the requisite plan submittal, but the details on the plan to address the shoreline erosion, the impacts to neighboring properties, et cetera, needs to be there. So
I'm not really prepared to state this is exactly what needs to be said. I think if you make if you don't recommend granting the CUP to the council and the council does not take action on it, I mean, that there are compliance issues, there are violations that exist right now, and we could attempt to get an injunction so that he stays and doesn't engage in further activities. We can continue to fine him. There are a couple hammers in our tool belt that we can apply here. With regard to your action, no, I don't think we need anything like special from you with regard to a finding. Not that I can think of, but frankly, we haven't gone through this process before. So I think the powerful thing is denial of the conditional use permit for non-compliance with existing ordinance and, you know, whatever other laundry list of reasons you have.
Thank you.
And I don't have a question, again, if I apologize, but I'm concerned a little bit about the fine being $100 per inspection. It seems pretty low to get someone to move, especially when you have someone in the community that is opting to be part of the community. And so is there anything that we get, I'm just wondering if there's anything
No authority over.
that's done at that point. It's done at the city council. Okay.
That's even statutory, so it's
okay.
out of the city's hands.
Thanks.
You need a motion?
Yes, if you would like to make a motion,
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we deny the request for the conditional use permit for Mr. Grant.
Second that.
it's been moved, all right. It's been moved and seconded to deny the request. Are there any further discussion? All right, in that case, we'll proceed with a roll call vote.
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Dr. Mason,
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris,
Me, oh, aye.
Mr. Grady,
Aye.
motion passed 5-0.
All right. I think we should have the reasons that are articulated as the reasons for denial. Mr. Wolf?
For the council,
Yes,
Certainly.
there should be reasons for denial.
we will work with the city attorney to make sure that those are articulated.
Well,
Yeah.
where are those coming from? If you have reasons, I would put those on the record now. This is being recorded.
Right. right.
And I think that would be appropriate.
All right. I would recommend, for reasons for denial, that the application is incomplete, that there has been a lack of good faith in addressing the grading and erosion issues on the subject site, and that there have been repeated code violations and failure to address the code standards as they exist now.
Would you like to revisit the previous motion that passed and add those to that motion?
I think that might be appropriate.
Okay, so we need a motion to revisit that.
A motion to revisit the denial of Mr. Grant's request.
I'll second.
Okay, but moved by Mr. Grady and seconded by Mrs. Bishop to revisit the motion of denial to add,
And then I'd like a motion
Reasons.
to amend,
yes,
adding those.
yes. All right, so, first, I think we're voting on a
Correct.
motion to, is this a motion to reconsider, did you say?
Yeah, that's appropriate.
Yeah, okay. A motion to reconsider. All right, so that's been moved and seconded. All those, we'll take a roll call vote on that.
Mr. Foster,
Yeah.
Aye.
Dr. Mason,
The screen.
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris,
Aye.
Mr. Grady,
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, at this time then, I would entertain a motion to amend the previous motion to add the reasons for denial.
Also move.
Second.
It's been moved by, remind me.
Dr. Mason?
Dr. Mason, thank you. Been moved by Dr. Mason and seconded by Mr. Grady to amend the previous motion to add the reasons for denial. Any other comments?
And
Yeah.
you're gonna put those in,
For
correct?
clarification, the three
Yeah.
reasons I'm going to add are the incomplete nature of the application, the lack of good faith in addressing this issue, and the repeated, existing, and continued code violations on the property.
Good.
Would it be appropriate to add encroachment on public property?
An easement isn't public property, though, is it? It's public infrastructure, which would be public property, but it's not. I don't think we could do that, Mike.
I don't think we can.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Nope, I figured I'd ask.
All right. All right. All right, then in that case, we'll proceed with roll call vote on the motion in the second.
Dr. Mason,
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris,
Aye.
Mr. Grady,
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Mr. Foster.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right. All right, very well, then that ends this item. Therefore, we proceed with item number 7, discussion on comprehensive plan update. So we ask for Mr. Wolf.
Thanks, Steve. I'm hoping we can make this work. Wow, this is a very short.
Yeah, it's not gonna show unless you flip it, and then we're gonna lose the.
Okay. We'll be brief then. We'll try to work without being able. Oh, there we go. We can project. Excellent.
Misty, can you still hear us?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. It's that time again to update the comprehensive plan. And it's been a few years, but the plan has been a very good roadmap over the last decade for the community. And we are tonight going to just kind of introduce this to you. We're going to give you a little bit of homework to fill out and to send back to us. We're going to outline a schedule for moving forward. We're going to be on a relatively rapid schedule for a number of reasons. We don't want this to linger on. We want to always see constant momentum. And we are going to have some turnover at the senior level, and we're trying to stay ahead of that curve as well. But the comprehensive plan is obviously a roadmap for, we look out 20 years, but it has strategic components to it. It has things that you're going to do in the 5-year and the 10-year. It has a litany of, by law, elements ranging from agricultural and cultural natural resources to land use, which is obviously the most dominant, economic development, housing, which is, as you are aware, has been a very key issue facing communities over the last 10 years, but mostly in the last 5 years, it's been a very problematic issue. Community and utility community facilities and utilities. And we're going to have a lot of discussion about that with wastewater treatment plants and such. But at the end of the day, we have to have a plan. I mean, that's the bare bones of it is, if you as a community want to continue making land use decisions for yourself, by law, you must have a plan. And that was put into place 20 years ago to compel communities to have a plan, right? So decisions can be made in a rational manner, so the public can understand the hows and whys of the community, where growth is expected, where growth is not expected, et cetera. We're going to walk through a bunch of those things. The chapters we're going to provide to you in advance, and we're going to work through some issues at each meeting, some key issues. So we're triaging the existing document. I'm hoping all of you have kind of thumbed through it. If not, it's a good time to kind of get to refamiliarize yourself with it. But as I said, we're going to bring chapters to you in a monthly fashion. We are going to engage the public in a different manner than we did last time. We are going to be engaging them, hopefully from their homes, surveys, and the ability to participate remotely. So we're going to work with you to develop a community survey that's going to go out. We are going to work with you and city staff to identify either key individuals or community groups that you'd like us to sit down and get feedback from as it relates to key issues in the community. We're going to get those scheduled into there. We are going to give you a questionnaire. We're going to give the council a questionnaire, and we're going to give the city staff a questionnaire about a number of issues. And the rationale behind that is to see where you align and where maybe you don't align on some key components of decision making in the community, because you are the three groups that are most tasked with it. Obviously, the political body, which is the council, the frontline people, which is the staff, and then you as decision makers for the built environment, right? So we want to see kind of expectations, et cetera. The first, I'll say, chapter that we've provided to you is really just the introduction chapter. It is not my expectation to walk through chapters page by page. The intro is what is this plan? Why are we doing it? Who does it impact? How does it impact people? What's going to be in it? So it's kind of the broad brushstrokes. Next month, we're going to bring you what we call the issues and opportunities chapters. That is the demographics. And that is kind of some of the key issue things that we've been grappling with from the last plan, some things to bring forward, talking about visioning, et cetera. So again, you're going to get that in a couple weeks. So we'll give it to you in advance of meetings. We're going to be looking to you to provide feedback on all of these things. Likes, dislikes. We are going to integrate the questionnaires we provided, the public involvement as that comes forward. We'll summarize that. We are going to bring different staff people out. I'm looking at the Assistant Director of Public Works, or the city engineer will be coming out to talk about key elements as it impacts kind of their day-to-day when you start talking about utilities, roadways, et cetera. We're going to talk about housing issues, I think, at length, economic development and TIF issues. We're going to be integrating, you've done a lot of planning over the last 10, 12, 14 years. We want to get those documents integrated in here, whether it's the North Side Neighborhood Plan, the redevelopment plans for the Sandy Beach area, et cetera. So we want to get those things integrated here. But, in the end, you're going to be providing a lot of feedback to us. And you're going to be making a lot of recommendations or decisions on the future of the community. These things, we will try to get a work session scheduled with you and the council on some of these items. Ultimately, you will make a recommendation on a completed plan. It will have a public hearing before you. It will go to the council. We will provide it to neighboring jurisdictions so they can see it and provide feedback. But we're looking at tonight just this, an intro. There's nothing to really react to. But we're going to walk through the public involvement plan in a second. have you had a chance to review the introduction chapter? It's brief and it's lighthearted in a sense. It's not intended to be, an overwhelming component. There are going to be some beefier chapters coming that make a lot of important decisions. But if there are elements that you, when we provide them to you, like to see a little more detail on, please provide that to us. In a nutshell, we're going to give you as I said, the chapters in advance that are going to talk about kind of the existing conditions. We'll have updated those and working with the staff to have those done. And then we are going to walk through chapters with you to talk about, does this still hold? Do these recommendations still hold true? What are other issues that we need to, and that's the questionnaire, what other issues we need to address? And we'll start bringing materials back for you to react to. And ultimately, to develop a plan on these elements that will provide a good roadmap for the community and the city staff to make decisions by. I know Pam has done this many times in her position in planning, but for some of you, it may be the first time you've been involved on kind of this end, but you've certainly been involved with planning for this community. So, I'm going to pull up. We should have brought a colored one. But in a nutshell, this is our schedule. We really want to get through the bulk of this by the end of summer, right? We want to be through the meat of the plan and into an adoption process, generally to be adopted in the fall. We aren't starting from scratch here, so this is not an insurmountable task. It's front-loaded with public involvement. So this top portion where you see all these little stars, those are public involvement activities. Now, of course, the public is always welcome to attend meetings, provide input. We will have comment forms made available so they can provide written comments on issues, et cetera. But these are areas where we're going to be specifically trying to engage whether it's groups within the community or individuals to provide feedback on a number of things in the survey. We will bring a draft survey to you next month, and the goal is to get that survey out somewhere in March so people can respond online. And as I said, having a work session with the council after we've got enough public input, so we can talk about where there's alignment or questions on and concerns to provide direction moving forward. We're in data collection and analysis phase right now. As I said, we're putting the issues and opportunities, which is a lot of demographics, highlighting obviously the kind of historical changes to the community, housing, population, et cetera. That provides context for individual chapters of the document, how much land use we need to accommodate for, where there might be specific housing needs or recreational needs that need to be accommodated, transportation needs or mobility needs. So we're doing that now. We'll bring that to you. It's a lot of tables in summary, but we do it on the front end, so you know kind of where you're at as a community. What are the age demographics? What are the cohorts that we're contending with? What are some of the income issues that we might be grappling with, et cetera. And then as you can see, I'm going to just zoom in, all of the various elements of the plan. Again, the more exciting ones become, land use, housing, economic development. But land use, utilities, and community facilities kind of go hand in hand, right? You want to grow in certain areas, there may be utility impacts to that. We need to talk about those up front. So, questions on the intro? Concerns about the aggressive schedule?
Not yet, no.
When was the last time we did this?
It was
08,
2009.
09, yeah.
Yeah, it was the last one was adopted in May of 2009.
A lot of things came out of that. We did the zoning code after that,
We
right?
did,
And the
yeah.
subdivision code. Those were big documents that came out of that. kind of that time frame, we did the North Side Neighborhood Plan, and there have been some revisions to that. A lot of the focus on redevelopment areas, whether it was the CPN area, the North Side, the entryway to the community, the 89 and V area came from that comprehensive plan, right? The new Walgreens with a prominent kind of feature, the clock tower out at the edge to kind of sense of arrival, and then the South Side that you're seeing the development now around Sandy Beach Road and Main Street, and the extension where you see the loose homes development on the south end, and those things all came out of the last comprehensive plan.
I was going to ask earlier in the meeting, it was mentioned, gentleman came in the public hearing, he mentioned about 100-year-old neighborhoods, and I wasn't quite sure, but is that something that we could then formulate from this plan, get more information, hear some of the concerns, and be able to move something forward? Okay.
Absolutely. Specific recommendations related to the older neighborhoods could come from this, of course.
In fact, we did that in the last code review. We made a lot of changes to the older neighborhoods, so for zoning conditions. We did review this one that he brought up, and it wasn't moved forward because it wasn't necessarily what was occurring. But yeah, you can do that.
Cool. Thanks.
The design guidelines that we use for commercial design guidelines and multifamily design guidelines that got integrated into the code, to the zoning code, that came out of the last comprehensive plan, was the need to make those clearer and to reflect kind of the values and expectations of the community. So,
one more question. Communication seems to be the reoccurring theme. That's not one of the main tenets of this. Is that? But is it found in other places? How we communicate what we expect of our community members in our community. Yeah.
I think there are going to be ample areas where we can integrate kind of expectations on communication, right? Whether it's on activities that are coming up or development review type things. I think the city has been getting progressively better about making more information available to the public. But there can be discussions of process issues. I also know that the city is undertaking the strategic plan with the council. I would say that there might be some specific things that would come out of that as well about communication, how information is disseminated or made available. But we are going out to actively seek input from the public. It is a challenge to get public involvement in things. Yes. It's very easy when you're doing something people are vehemently opposed to. That kind of silent majority is kind of always our bane. The survey that we're putting together is intended to ask pointed questions about development types, growth areas, values, key issues in whether it's the downtown or the north side or the industrial park, and so again, to try to solicit specific feedback on some of those items, and we're hoping that when you're reviewing it, that you tell us whether we kind of hit the nail on the head, if we need to ask other questions or be more pointed on things. That's the expectation out of the survey.
Thank you.
You're not going to hurt our feelings if you say that there's some things that need to be added to text. If there's typos and things, which we obviously try to avoid, we'll correct them. But we are not intending to go page by page. But if you have, we're going to have some kind of prompting questions for you as it relates to chapters when they're given to you. We want to use your time well here. We know that it's limited. And so we want to make it productive for you to provide feedback so we can go back and put pen to paper on the key issues that get raised by the public, by the staff, by you guys.
Mr. Wolf, what criteria are we using to determine who key personnel are and who would be in a focus group?
That's a great question. We are going to ask you and the staff and the council to say, who would you like us to meet with? We've kind of earmarked about, I'll say 5 hours, which is usually about 5 groups for about 45 odd minutes. Things that come up. the downtown business group or Main Street or the chamber, right? Those that's generally a group we want to meet with. If there are specific homeowners groups that you think are valuable, or like realtors and that kind of stuff, to talk about some of those issues, or builders to talk about like impediments to certain types of housing happening here. There can be the meeting with the industrial park people. It could be meeting with key property owners in the community that, why hasn't your property developed, or what are you looking for out there? Trying to get some feedback from that. So again, it could be the lake property owners if that's a priority. We're going to get the list from you. We're going to get the list from the staff, and then obviously we're going to have to cull the list to kind of what the key groups are. And then of course we're going to try to solicit just general feedback from everyone, right? People who work here versus people who live here, or both, right? People who raise families here versus someone who's a business owner. We're trying to get everybody's feedback in different ways.
So will you use focus groups too?
That's the key personnel or key group. Yeah, that's the focus group, is assembling, certain groups with kind of overlap, and we would meet with them one-on-one. Those are not generally public meetings.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, we would meet with them as a group and kind of, I'll say, poke them a little bit to like try to get them to provide some very specific feedback. Things are anonymous when we meet with people. We'll talk in the general sense of group or or property owners or whatever it is. We don't attribute any specific quotes to anybody. When we summarize it, it's to get an understanding on those issues to help you make decisions for the document.
Okay. All right. We have plan commissions, we have a two-step process in our discussion of this comprehensive plan update. I think we can shift into what is item number 8 on the agenda, discussion and recommendation on a comprehensive plan update, public involvement plan. Mr. Wolf has provided these list of public involvement activities, and also you can see the public involvement plan in this update schedule. You can see where that is going to be taking place. We also have this prepared motion, and this is Plan Commission Motion 2212, recommending to the City Council approval of the public involvement plan for the comprehensive plan update. The motion does set forth the city's land use and zoning authority under Wisconsin state statutes, the Plan Commission's responsibility for planning the development of the city, including growth areas, the city manager's request for a comprehensive plan update proposal from the consulting planner, and the city manager's forwarding of the public involvement plan to the Plan Commission, as well as the Plan Commission's review of the public involvement plan. This motion does provide for a recommendation by the Plan Commission to the City Council to approve the public involvement plan. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the public involvement plan?
Yes, ma'am.
And then the Plan Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments about what you have seen about the public involvement activities? Okay. All right. Is there anyone who wishes to make a motion at this time, or would you like to discuss further?
Make a motion to approve 2212, Communication Public Involvement Plan.
All right.
Second.
Comprehensive.
Moved by Mr. Grady and seconded by Mrs. Bishop to approve Plan Commission Motion 2212. Is there any discussion? Well, in that case, I'll proceed with roll call vote on that.
Ms. Lazaris,
Aye.
Mr. Grady,
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Dr. Mason.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Ms. Lazar, if I can just ask another question related to kind of general meetings. There can be some meetings related to the comp plan that could have a lot of discussion amongst you.
Sure.
I'm wondering if you would want to explore an earlier start to plan commission meetings where there's regular business items. I don't want to keep you here till 10 o'clock is my issue. So I'm wondering if you would be willing to explore a 6 o'clock start, so if there are regular agenda items, because then we could, if you have 2 hours of discussion and you don't get done with a meeting, you have an item like tonight where you could have an hour and a half of discussion and then we get into another hour and a half or 2 hours of comp plan. It's something to be evaluated. That can make for a long day.
I know the last time, it wasn't so much done with the comprehensive plan, but it was absolutely done with the zoning code rewrite, where we did start sooner. That was more like a 6:30, and then because sometimes it was used that early time could also be used for a specific focused discussion on
Certainly.
some particular topic. And so it could be used that way as well. Well, plan commissioners, what would you like to see? Would you be more interested in 6 o'clock or 6:30 to get a head start on the comprehensive plan business?
I can do 6 o'clock for the most part. I don't know if that's too early for
6
some people.
o'clock is okay with me.
I'm okay with whatever you decide. I mean, either one. I don't want to be here at 10 o'clock either.
No, I'd imagine that our city staff doesn't want to be here till 10 o'clock. That's fine with me, yeah.
Mike, can you make it?
Mr. Foster,
Yep.
what
I
would
sure
you
can.
think about 6 or
Good.
6:30?
He said he can.
Yeah, 6.
Oh, very
6
good.
is fine.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right, well, plan accordingly.
We will do so.
Okay. All right, that sounds great. All right, well, that leads us then to recommendation for number 9, recommendation for future agendas. Is there anything that we should come forward at this time? Other
We
than
do
the
know of a conditional use that will be coming. I'm doubtful it will be in February, very confident in March, and then, of course, we'll have comprehensive planning items. Is there any other? So, yeah, there's some annexations that are going through right now, and there will be a development plan associated with one of them that's supposed to be coming forward.
Okay. All right, very well. All right, in that case, we're on to item number 10, which is adjournment. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second?
Moved by Dr. Mason, seconded by Mr. Grady. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We're adjourned.